Good morning and welcome back to United TV. We'll try and keep you up to date on every Manchester United story that is breaking, but there are a lot of stories at the moment about Mateus Fernandes. There's a lot of stories about Eddie Anderson, and we'll go through a few. There's Manchester United potentially agreeing terms with Anderson. Fernandes being the one I've seen pushed this morning. But also, if you remember yesterday, there was a lot of news, a lot of excitement about potentially Manchester United getting a couple of deals done with Ederson and Tonali. That's something which there seems to be a bit more on Ederson at the moment as well, which might be good news for fans, might not be good news for fans if you don't want Ederson, but Manchester United might be pressing forward with this deal. They're going to resume talks. The price feels like it's a price that could get done quite quickly. Could be about £35 million, and add-ons another four, so we're looking at quite a cheap deal. Apparently, Ederson is quite keen to join Manchester United now. This has been reported by national newspapers in the United Kingdom. So Simon Jones, writing for the Daily Mail, says Man United expected to get this deal done effectively, and whether that's going to be done or not, that's something that we're going to find out. One of the things that also I've seen being pushed out there as well is regarding Tchouaméni and Ellie Anderson. This might get resolved quite quickly. We might find out whether United are going to be having any chance at all before the World Cup starts. So I think that's 11th of May, sorry, 11th of June. So that's going to be quite soon. So I think there's a few stories this morning suggesting that maybe it's over for Manchester United, and maybe there's a story that Manchester City are pushing forward with this deal. We'll have to see if that's true. I did see someone in the chat, so I'll try and put it on the screen as well. But this looks like something that I think Man United possibly it might be game over already for Anderson, but we'll have to see. This is the story I saw, so thank you, United I Die for this. It says Elliot Anderson has agreed personal terms with Manchester City for a contract until 2031, and so City are trying to work to reach an agreement with Nottingham Forest. This has been reported this morning. If Manchester United want to get Anderson done, then they'd have to agree terms pretty quickly as well. Players can agree terms with multiple clubs, so it looks like it's close to being over, but it's not necessarily 100% over. I think that's probably the best way of looking at it at the moment. I think Manchester United are pressing forward with other deals as well as we speak. So this is where we're going to talk about Fernandes today as potentially one of Manchester United's maybe one of the deals that could happen quite early and could be a deal that Manchester United fans actually like. So regarding Anderson and Tchouaméni, like I said, Manchester United will find out relatively quickly if there's any chance of signing those players. And if there's no chance of signing those players, some of the targets are looking at now. You've got Ederson, you've got Fernandes, got Baliba, you've got a few players that are not going to the World Cup. And I think terms are being agreed by some of these players as well. So it could potentially be that Manchester United get these deals done pretty rapidly. And I think that's the story we saw yesterday as well. Laurie Whitwell talking about it, saying that Manchester United will get terms agreed between themselves and the players. So as soon as the transfer window opens, they just got to negotiate with the club. So again, that might take a little while, but it does mean that these deals would be secure and it would just be a case of negotiating, very similar to what we saw last season. So we'll jump into these, and I would say that please get any sort of comments, questions in that you do have, and we will try and go through these as well. Let's say Tyrone says Elliot Anderson baffles you, saying like many other players, why play for a team with such a weak fan base? Honestly, I have no idea whatsoever. It does seem to be a strange, like a strange one, regardless of what. So, no, I think when you're looking at the situation regarding Elliot Anderson, maybe there's an attraction to try and go. Maybe they see Manchester City as being the best way to win trophies. I don't know. In terms of like financial implications, you're going to get paid well at Manchester United. You're going to get paid well at Manchester City. If you go to Manchester United, you can probably make just as much money through other endorsements because you're going to have such a higher profile. So I do think there's definitely money as a factor. But I think in modern football, when players are able to leverage their image, I think going to Manchester United would be significantly good as well. So you'd make a lot of money from that. I saw that Arsenal's fan base completely dwarfs Manchester City's fan base. We've seen that with the celebrations. If Anderson chooses City, I hope we stop talking about him. Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about Fernandes, and people are people are posting comments saying about about Anderson. It's clearly like it's something on Man United's radar, but no, it's not. It's probably not going to happen. I don't think. Tonali on the way, says John. So is it John O'Connell? So John says Tonali on the way. That maybe maybe that could be something that's going to be happening. That could be something that's in the pipeline as well. I think we've seen this, and Manchester United reportedly agree in terms of Ederson a while ago, and also Tonali. He's put in the transfer request from Newcastle. He wants to leave Newcastle. I don't think there's going to be significant links between Tonali and someone else. But in terms of the story about Mateus Fernandes, the team's interested. We know. We know that it's going to be Manchester United. It's going to be Arsenal. There's also Paris Saint-Germain interested as well. And this has been the story pushed out this morning is that the most likely destination, if he stays in England, would be Manchester United. So it feels a little bit now what they're going with is it Manchester United versus Paris Saint-Germain? And if that is the case, can Manchester United get this deal done? That we've got Champions League football, we've got a team which hopefully with a sensible rebuild is going to be, I don't know if it's going to be in a title race next season, but you would feel that it could be closer than this season if we start off the way we finished the league, which hopefully is possible. And I think some of these signings, if we can get some of these signings done early and we can start actually decent next season, I think we've got a more stable base. We've got more experience for people like Aidan Heaven. We've got a proper goalkeeper in from day one. I think we like Mathis Cunha, Benjamin Sesko. They've definitely got up to speed over the course of the season. So I think the last sort of 10 games is a good indication that Man United can hit the ground running. All we've got to do really is effectively try and replace Casemiro. And I think signing two or three midfield players probably does that if we get the right quality. Matheus Fernandes on his own, I think if you look at him, he's a very good player. He is obviously one for the future. Manchester United might be looking at trying to get Ederson or trying to get too many if he is available, trying to get a bit more experience into the squad. And maybe what we do see is some of the stories that have gone a little bit quiet, maybe they start getting a bit noisier if we miss out on a couple of targets. So things could change a little bit. And say we've agreed terms with Fernandez doesn't mean we'll get him, but I think no, it doesn't mean we'll get him the same way. You could have the same energy and say that if City agreed terms with a player, will they get him? Probably that you'd feel like they would get him, but no, it doesn't mean that we'll definitely get the player. But it does mean that we've got a bit of time. And say yeah, there is like City have definitely like to change a fan base, like to change a fan base and to grow a fan base takes time, doesn't it? So for City, all they can do is continually keep winning things. Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, the fan base is already there, like it's well established, and it's going nowhere. So I think with Man City, you have to be successful for a generation to get the next generation of fans, don't you? I think Man United that they're probably losing some of the younger fan base which has been taken up by City, but we're going to see hopefully that come back. But in terms of this one, Torrens says, I would be very happy if we signed Matheus Fernandes. I think Matheus Fernandes represents one of the players that would be a top quality signing, but you would also look at trying to get some experience as well. Yeah, no, there's not much you can do if one player goes to one club, you just kind of move on, don't you? And I wouldn't worry too much about it as well. Morning, Mark, and Malps is saying money. This is one of the things as well that if Manchester United want to get some of the top targets, then at some point it will be about money. And it's good that United have got the history, United have got the capability to pay big contracts if they need to and they want to and they are going to have to do some of that soon. So if we look at buying better and better players, and at some point we're going to be looking at buying players that people would look at as being hopefully world class players, if not already or close to the future. And United will have to start paying salaries that represent that as well. So it's one thing buying some squad players, and it's one thing buying prospects, but the sort of money that you put Aidan Heaven and Yora on as players at Manchester United, if you start signing players like Tchouameni, or you sign Anderson, or you got Gahey, Semenyo, you're going to have to start paying bigger salaries because the market value of those players is higher. They're going to be able to get more. If Manchester United signed Tonali, he would probably be on quite a big salary. If you consider that that Conor Gallagher is on 200k at Spurs, then I think Manchester United having say Cunha, Sesko, and Buemo on lower salaries does go to show that at the moment we're not paying high salaries to players coming in. That will probably have to change a little bit. Like you're not going to be able to get, you're going to have to pay at least what City are paying. Otherwise, you're going to lose some of these players. I would say no. The personal terms are just the first part of the story, isn't it? It's not going to be the end game, but it does go to show that I think with United, I think with Manchester United, what we're looking at seeing is Manchester United agreed personal terms with I don't know like a few players. Like Belieber was done last year. I think Ederson is agreed terms with as well. You can look at I think Tonali might be the next one, although that seems to be hot and cold. There was loads and loads of journalists talking about that yesterday, and it seems to be coming out mainly from Italy. But I think Man United have been just not saying too much. So cooling on Tonali to get the price down, um, possibly. I think possibly. I think with this one that there's so many stories that it's not really like Man United cool down on the story. It's that journalists just keep rotating through different players. So I think a lot of stories on the weekend, or actually not the weekend, a day ago were about Tonali and about Edison, and now a lot of stories are about Fernandes because I think that they talked about Tonali so much, you start looking at the next one. So I have seen actually in terms of like the trend in football. And Tony's saying about the money. I think I have seen some stories with some evidence that maybe Newcastle's owners might be opening. No, they might be open to selling a share of Newcastle. So it might be that they might start feeling that with Newcastle they're not able to actually do what they want to do with the rules. Um, Yeah, to be honest, I don't pay too much attention to what Arsenal fans say. There's a lot of Arsenal fans, they're very vocal. I know what Arsenal fans are thinking. Fair play to Arsenal that they won the league. You don't win the league by being, well, you can be a bit fortunate if you concede zero penalties and have loads of VAR decisions go for you, but they probably deserve it over City in the long run. And welcome to chat, Vincent, and welcome, Jules. Good to see you guys. Hopefully you're having a good day. I think with this one, like, what are you expecting from a Manchester United head coach? I think if you're not a yes man, you won't get a job anyway. So I think that's going to be yeah. So will we relate to the party in talking to Anderson? Why terms are agreed? So I don't know actually. If Manchester United made him their priority target, you'd feel that there must be so if you don't actually have a conversation with Anderson and make an offer, I don't know behind the scenes like whether Manchester United just knew that, whether Manchester United just knew the situation. I don't know. Um, welcome George to chat. Good to see you, George. Says seeing the Arsenal fan base celebrating it reminds me of what it used to be like when we won titles. It felt a little bit like because it's been like was it 22 years since Arsenal won a title. It's been like so long that I think a lot of football fans forgot what it's like when a large fan base celebrates a title. And Arsenal got a large fan base in the UK. Obviously, City not that, but no, I think what it's the also. I think a lot of City's fan base, like you said, is children. So in terms of people that are going to be out celebrating, it's not going to be people that are in primary school, is it? So the people out celebrating, Arsenal fans going crazy midweek, but fair play to them. They won the league title. This is up to Manchester United now to try and close the gap. And it feels a bit like what we've seen this season. The gap is getting smaller, but don't forget, Arsenal will probably rebuild as well. Some of the players we're looking at, Mateus Fernandes, Tonali, they have been also linked to Arsenal. So this might be that there is a significant threat from Arsenal as well. So if we lose to Brighton, Villa lose and Liverpool win, we will hand Brighton Champions League football. That's an interesting dynamic I'd not thought about actually, because you have got a situation where you could be seeing potentially like with Bournemouth as well, looking at what they can do in the fixtures. But yeah, no, I don't. Well, I'm expecting Manchester United to maybe heavily rotate against Brighton, and I'm hoping we'll win that game like always. But we will rotate a bit. I hadn't really considered what happens regarding the other teams, but I don't even know who who Villa are playing against. I can't remember who Liverpool are playing against because I think most things are kind of wrapped up. But there is a scenario as well that Bournemouth could get Champions League. So potentially for the games that the way the situation has panned out, there's not really many dead games, is there? There's a lot to play for a lot of teams. And say City, Arsenal, Liverpool signing top tier players. We won't catch them by tapping up relegated players. Okay, I think with this one, if Nottingham Forest had got relegated, we'd be talking about Elliot Anderson as a relegated player. So I don't worry about which clubs the players play for. We're talking about Mateus Fernandes playing for West Ham as well. If Manchester United signed Elliot Anderson and Mateus Fernandes and they both got relegated, I think we'd still be signing two top quality players. The depth in the Premier League, the way it is, it just means that even relegated teams have some quality players. And look at West Ham, where people have been talking about Bowen, been talking about Somerville, Juve, that Paqueta we talked about, but he left in January. And we talk about Fernandez. They got some good players there. The fact that the team has been disappointing over the season doesn't mean like Manchester United finished 15th in the league last season. Bruno Fernandes was still a quality player. And Cody Mainoo was still a quality football player. Casemiro was still a good football player as well. So we finished 15th and we're very dysfunctional, but we did have some good players in our team. I'd say you'll feel sorry for Belieber if he doesn't get his move to Manchester United, doesn't want anybody else. Well, to be honest, I think for Man United that it's about getting the right price. If Brighton got Champions League football, you can imagine that even if Man United did buy Belieber, the price would be astronomical. So I'm not sure it would happen anyway. That it might be that he gets priced out, but maybe that's something to consider as well. That maybe if you're going to sign for clubs like Brighton or Brentford or Bournemouth or Crystal Palace, and if you see it as a stepping stone, maybe you need to get a contract that does have a release clause that is going to be a sensible price, and it's going to be like if you sign for Brighton for 20 million or 15 million, maybe get a release clause put in there like 50 or 60, so that if you do become a player people want, that you can engineer a departure from that club at a sensible price. I mean, when I see players at Sporting Lisbon that are okay players, but really the release clauses are like 75, 80 million. It's way too much, isn't it? So release clauses, if you get a realistic one, maybe you can move. Maybe you can move clubs if you want to do that one. I think Roy Keane did quite well, from what I can remember. Lumen. I mean, Roy Keane, Manchester United legend, probably one of our best players in the treble-winning season, and also probably a key player for a lot of title wins over this years. And I think he got relegated with Nottingham Forest, and we could be having the same sort of situation, couldn't we? That if we're looking at Wolves, Wolves are going to get relegated, and well, they got relegated months ago, it seems. And what we're looking at here is a team that's got some good players. Mathis Mane is a good football player. People are talking about Gomez as well. So I don't think I think people just need to differentiate between what is a good football player and what is a well functioning team, because you can drop a world class player into a crap team. That team will still be crap, and there's only so much one or two players can do in a team. So yeah, I think there's going to be say Joe Cole, Carrick, Lampard, Jermaine Defoe. Like, I mean, even if you're a recent football watcher, you might be looking at some of these players, and these names will be familiar to you because they were very good players. I mean, Frank Lampard, probably the highest scoring midfield player I think we've seen in the Premier League. So again, this is kind of standard procedure for Manchester United. Look at some of the players Man United bought. This is kind of what we used to do from probably late 80s through to the mid 90s at least, and it was signing players from like Middlesbrough, from trying to think where we got these players from, like Brøndby for Schmeichel. You look at Oldham for Dennis Irwin, Pallister and Bruce from like things like Norwich City and Middlesbrough. We used to do this all the time. And we got like Ince from West Ham, who like a mid-table club. You get Roy Keane from Nottingham Forest. We used to do this is essentially building. That's like the back four, and that's our midfield, bought from lower Premier League teams, mid Premier League teams, and high Championship teams. And this is kind of standard practice for a long time. It's a tried and tested method. I know there's like it doesn't mean there's not good players in other leagues. There's obviously good players in multiple leagues, but it does mean that it's about getting the best players and most of these transfers you look at, there's not a lot of risk. all these players you sign, you kind of know what you're going to get. You're not going to get massive disappointments. If you buy a player from the Premier League, can you think of examples where we bought players from the Premier League and they've massively underperformed where you thought maybe Alexis Sanchez might be the one, but to be honest, most of them actually work out pretty well. Welcome to chat, Bruno, as well. You must be happy with your individual awards this season. Um, what can yeah? To be honest, actually, interestingly about Dallo is Real Madrid apparently interested, but Man United. If we're going to sell Dallo, at least cash in. Like that's all I'd say. I don't really mind Man United selling players, but at least cash in if you're going to sell some of these players. I would say it won't hurt you if we don't get Anderson, given how yeah the price tag's crazy. It is like a huge price tag put on there, but no one knows how much it's going to be. Um, which Fernand are you talking about, Bruno? Or are you talking about Mathis? But yeah, I think Lumen knows that Roy Keane was relegated. I think that was one of those kind of rhetorical type questions. To go back to Randy's comment, also big up to you, Randy. Some of these players we're looking at. I think most people would look at it and say that Mateus Fernandes, obviously a good quality player. You could make some arguments as well regarding which players are going to be effective. I think this is the reason why we saw all these stories yesterday about Ederson and Tonali. And this is about getting someone that's going to be close to their prime, someone with that experience. And people looking at Ederson, I would say don't really don't underrate Ederson either, that he is a player that imagine if Fred could score goals and Fred was a bit more careful in possession. I think you're going to have somebody that can move around the pitch like Fred. They're going to be able to defend a bit like Agate, and Agate does actually have some decent defensive attributes. But on the ball, Ederson is actually levels above Agate. So I think in terms of like a cheap option, I can see why he's being considered because he does tick all the boxes in terms of like a player that would work in the Premier League that is not a Premier League football player. So Edison might be he might be for a lot of people not the most exciting, but it would for me. I think it would work as a signing because the price is quite low. I think he would be an effective squad option. His levels above Agate and Toby Collier, so and again he might be like our third choice player anyway. So I don't see it as being a massive a massive risk. Say PSG are poaching from outside their league to become better. We're going Premier League proven, even though a lot of these players say are average at best. Which players do you think are? I think some of these players we got, like Cunha and Buemo last season, worked out pretty well. And I think with Paris Saint-Germain tend to. You might have seen recently as well that some players for French clubs, it's a little bit like it's a little bit like Bayern Munich in Germany, that German teams don't want to sell players to Bayern Munich because Bayern Munich just become almost unbeatable. I mean, like Lewandowski was probably the last very big player they bought from another German club. And if you're looking at the situation at the moment, it seems that Paris Saint-Germain as well, French teams would rather sell players outside the league than sell to Paris Saint-Germain. I think Cherki was wanted by PSG, and I think Yoro might have been another player that was wanted by PSG. But these clubs are trying actively not to sell players to Paris Saint-Germain. So you saw like Kvaratskhelia came from Italy, and you've seen that maybe Paris Saint-Germain now might have to buy players that are not playing in the French league because of this reason. And Matheus Fernandes is a player that they want to get. I think this is kind of leading up to maybe a battle between Paris Saint-Germain and possibly Manchester United to try and get this deal done. So Cunha and Buemo did well, but we expected much more from them. I don't know. I disagree a little bit. I think if you're looking at the expectations, what were you expecting? So if you're expecting the same amount of goals, you have to appreciate that Cunha and Buemo were all penalty takers at their clubs. So you're going to have to lower the goal total by at least five, and then look at it. So I think Man United were one of the few teams to have or maybe the only team to have multiple players scoring double figures. So I think if you look at how many goals Man United scored last year, look at how many goals Manchester United scored this year, that's probably the biggest improvement in any club in the league. We've gone up by about 25 goals. And I did say exactly that about a year ago. If you watched Red Devil United, in the summer of 2025. We signed those players, and I said we should be getting 25 more goals this season. And if you think about it, that's what we got. We got exactly. I don't really care how many goals individual players score because it's team goals that win you games, not about how many goals and Mbeumo scores. I think overall, as a team, we scored way more goals. The attack is way better, but we do need to look at fixing midfield and maybe looking at defence quite soon as well, because that's kind of a vulnerability. Goal scoring, we're kind of matching Arsenal now. Conceding goals is something we need to upgrade on, and then that's just a natural progression of building a team that can win trophies. And say, Yoro for me, I think Yoro struggled a bit, to be honest. I think Yoro looks like he was maybe he has been a bit underwhelming so far this season based on the hype and expectation. But I think one of the things we've seen is that maybe it's been like multiple different managers, multiple different ways of playing. And I think Yoro needs to, at the moment, he's probably fallen behind Aiden Heaven in the pecking order. I think he's got a decent skill set. I think with Yoro, that sometimes it's the physicality. You wonder whether it's going to be you wonder whether he's ever going to actually get there. I know he's only 20, but it's been a couple of years, and there's a lot of expectation. Maybe this could be the year where we see Yoro actually step up a bit. So I think if he can work on some of the things, like in terms of aerial stuff as well, I don't think it. I mean, it is difficult, but it is a tricky one, isn't it? Yeah, Amarin Tax. To be honest, I think if you look at Amarin, if you look at Benjamin Sesko under the say the leadership of Carrick, for example, I think he scored most of his goals. I think he got a couple of deflector as well. So if you look at Benjamin Sesko's second half of the season compared with the first half of the season, this is where I think in terms of what do you expect next season, I would look at the last 15 games. Like usually how teams finish the season is a good indicator of what happens next year. Manchester United finishing the season strong. No team's getting more points than United. You've got Benjamin Sesko has been much better the last few months. You got Cunha finishing the season strongly as well, and I think all this factors into like Bruno Fernandes has been outrageous like since January. Like he played as a deep line playmaker for no good reason other than we had a manager that was out of his depth. And then you see Bruno Fernandes has got an assist record despite being essentially a defensive player for I don't know how long it was, for probably like till Christmas at least. And then you see him put up astronomical numbers. I think if you fix the midfield behind Bruno, which is what we're looking at, then Mateus Fernandes, whether it's going to be Belieber, whether it's going to be Ederson, Tonali, I think it doesn't. For me, it doesn't really matter exactly which individual players you get in, as long as like the plan works. And it seems that I think a lot of us are looking at say we lost the engine, and that's something we need to definitely get. We lost the engine, and we could be losing the heart as well if Casemiro and Bruno left the club. I think if you lose experienced players, you have to you have to replace them with some experience as well. So that's probably where if we sign three players, I think that this is going to be my prediction for a while. You sign three midfield players. For me, it makes sense to have two of them from the Premier League because that means that they can hit the ground running quicker. I know people say it's not always the case, but it is very often the case. A player that's played in the Premier League and has been successful, you know, at least as a minimum, he can cope with the physicality, he can cope with the speed of the league, and it's not going to be like a Florian Wirtz situation. It's not going to be like a Donny van der Beek option situation. You're going to see a player that can cope with the Premier League. And then when you're looking at the other factor, I think Manchester United need to try and get some experience into this midfield. Casemiro is a big loss experience wise, but you can get people that have got, I think you've got people like Anderson or too many that had experience. You've got Tonali and Ederson that got experience. So I don't think you need to get uh, multiple players, but if you get one player in that team that's got some experience, like a too many level experience would be good. Anderson, I mean, he's already relatively experienced considering his young age. And you could see a lot of these players now will be representing the country at age 21, 22. So you get some experience that way as well. So Don is saying Armadillo, yeah, and Wemo keeps being played as a striker, doesn't he? Like it's like if you put Mbeumo on the right hand side where he not naturally plays, I think he'd be more effective. Armadillo is I don't think Armadillo's ever really had. I know people saying his form's dropped off. I don't think Armadillo has ever really been anything different to what he has been recently. That he's never been prolific. He's never got a lot of goals. he looks good. No, he's good in possession, looks good dribbling, but Armadillo's never really had much of an end product. So I think Armadillo probably needs to step it up a little bit. I think he was. I'm not sure where he played when he went to Sunderland, but I think that he'll be okay this season. He'll get another season, but I think it might be a situation where if I was looking at rebuilding Manchester United in a year's time and we'd fix midfield, I think Armadillo, Luke Shaw, these are the players that will be getting upgraded. Hopefully, that I think Jallo's like going to have another season at United, but if it's the same as this season, I think we'd have to look at it and say, is he actually good enough for good enough for United? It's a maybe it's a contentious one for some fans, but I think I think he's got another year to prove himself, and if he doesn't, no, I would if there was an offer on the table, I'd take it, but I don't think there's I think there's too much to do at the moment as well. Mazraoui as well. I think Manchester United would accept offers for Mazraoui. They see him as someone they would if they sold him, they may go for someone like Ryerson. So I think they're looking at I think they're looking at all options. Like Mazraoui is not off the table, but I think it's unlikely they get him sold at the moment because I don't think there's going to be any offers coming in. So now there's going to be a lot of these sort of deals done. I think next year, like this year, is going to be very much about hammering the transfers in midfield. This is also is this is the last time that AFCON is going to be held in the winter anyway. So this is going to be the first time that AFCON will interfere with the Premier League. So it's going to be in alignment with. I think it's going to be like maybe it's going to be the same time as the Euros, but it's going to be in the summer. I don't know if that's going to be great for the players, but it's going to be very hot. But it's going to be one that doesn't affect with the Premier. It makes sense in terms of like scheduling tournaments 'cause it doesn't affect the Premier League, but it's. I don't think there's a best case scenario really, to be honest. Randy says we're building a midfield around Mainu. We need a left-footed midfielder next to him because he's very right-footed. If we don't bring in fullbacks, then we'll massively regret it. I'm going to tell you this. I remember these words, George. I remember. Did you check the message, George, I sent you? Because I said if you're regular in the comments, we can make you moderator again if you're up for it. But no, in terms of this one, I think Manchester United are going to be. If you watched, I know if Jules is still in the comments, I know Jules did a feature about a year ago on Michael Carrick and Middlesbrough, and he did look at this and say, well, with Middlesbrough, Michael Carrick did favour an attacking fullback, and if you look at Luke Shaw, you look at Dallo. I mean, how many assists are either of those players going to be getting? I think if you look at there was like is it DeMarco playing in Italy? And he's got something like 15 assists this season or something. So it's crazy for a fullback. But I think United are looking at trying to get an attacking fullback into the squad, and whether that's going to be there's a lot of options. Like, I think people are talking about Kadioglu. There's like Lewis Hall was linked, so it might be that that's going to be. It might be that Man United decide to keep Dallo as a more defensive-minded fullback. And to be honest, Dallo doesn't really create anything, does he? He doesn't offer a lot going forward. And maybe replace Luke Shaw or upgrade Luke Shaw with a better attacking fullback on the left-hand side. I think that's why people like Juve at West Ham. I think people like Juve because he gets crosses in early. He does like put a lot of crosses into the box. So it is potential like that one. As long as we don't buy the next Alex Tellez, exactly. Yeah, so exactly. Play Armadillo at right back. The problem with Armadillo at right back, if you watched Armadillo defend against Anderson on the weekend, last weekend, Armadillo can't really defend. So I know, like maybe people will put stats out there and say, oh, "Look at this," you know, you. Uh, but in terms of like defending it inside areas, Armadillo is quite poor. So if you put him at right back, he's getting bullied all day. So I think he's going to be maybe with Omajolo, maybe wing back was actually a better position for him, where you're kind of like not really defender. You're not. I think Omajolo for me is someone that like Dallo's a better right back, and I think we can buy and Buemo's a lot better right wing. So I think Omajolo for me is a bench option at the moment. So that's where I put him. I think at the moment I don't think he's good enough for the first team unless he improves. Would be yeah. He's quick, isn't he? He could be like a bench option in terms of someone to bring on, but I don't think he's going to be. For me, he's not a starting player at the moment. What do people think regarding Fernandez then? Is this going to be like one of Man United's first signings? Because this is probably that if we signed Ederson, then for me that's is it opportunistic or I think it's someone that's going to be a bit of experience, probably going to be a reliable player, but not spectacular. It feels a little bit like let's get someone in the squad that can be effective for a couple of seasons, maybe 2 or 3 seasons, but also look at Fernandez or look at Belieber or look at Manu as well and say, right, in 2 or 3 years' time, these players should improve massively and we should be looking at a top quality midfield. But in the very short term, losing Casemiro, to be honest, we shouldn't have bought Agate 2 years ago. We should have bought Casemiro's replacement then. And we should have been looking at higher quality midfielders to bring in. And we should have probably bought Declan Rice when we were talking about him about 5 years ago. But we didn't do that. So it's made it difficult as well. Ahmed can defend. I think Ahmed can do some defensive stuff, but I think physically he's not strong enough a lot of the times. It was quite easy for Anderson to kind of shrug him off, and I think that's kind of the vulnerability I'm thinking. If we think about it, another player to really watch next season is Dorgu, who people were calling the next Gareth Bale. To be honest, actually, if you remember George, when we talked about Dorgu before we signed him, I think it's the who was it? I think it might have been the Italian media were actually comparing him to Gareth Bale because the comparison they were making was not that he's going to hit the sort of level. It was going to be that Gareth Bale was a left back, wasn't he? Initially at Southampton, then played a lot further forward. I think they were just drawing that comparison that they never saw Dorgu as being a left back. They saw him as an attacking player, and I think he is an attacking player. United Dice says you're not excited for this window. Maybe we're going to have to do the panic poll at some point. And no, I think right wing back suited Armadillo. I can see Armadillo being effective off the bench, where he would be. No, he's quite fast at running at people as well. Would I call? When will I call out Ineos if transfers aren't happening? Well, certainly not 3 weeks before the transfer window opens. I think no. So our top targets: a relegated West Ham player, injured believer. Ederson is okay, but Bella's the last option. So I don't think these are the top targets, but I think they're the ones that have been highlighted in the press recently. So yeah, you can see the chat is filled to the brim with guys who wanted Bruno sold last season and get Belieber for 100 million. If Man United had sold Bruno Fernandes and replaced him with Belieber, I think we'd have had a tricky season, to be honest, like quite a tricky season. But I do think there's going to be scope to build behind Bruno Fernandes, and I did say this a few times. I don't really worry that West Ham are getting relegated, and I think Mateus Fernandes, you've got to look at what he's going to be getting in the future. That's what I'm thinking. So I don't think you're going to be seeing. So Samuel says Edison is Manuel Ugarte 2.0. He's really not though. Like if you look at Ugarte can't pass the ball forward, can he? So I don't see Edison being if you look at Edison at Atalanta, lots of assists. He does create a lot of chances. And does Agate make a forward pass? I just see him giving the ball away as soon as he gets it. So I'm not going to ever say that I think Edison's going to be a great signing, but I don't see him as being the same sort of player. He's a player that plays week in, week out. Agati was getting benched by PSG. I know PSG are a good team, but he was getting benched all the time. Maybe a question should be, say, excited say every summer, and say nothing will change, like Malps. Okay, we finished 15th, then we finished third. My question is going to be, if we look at last year, and we got Embuemo, Cunha, Benjamin Sesko, Lamans. Do we consider that a good transfer window? I know we didn't get a midfielder, but were those players good signings? Because I'd say that I think the signings were good. We just didn't do enough of them. So I've, Say if you buy players from lower teams, watch them cook. About this, okay, help me understand, Man United fans. You don't want to sign players from relegated teams, and you don't want to sign players from teams you see are struggling. But you want Manchester United to do what Brighton are doing, and what Brentford are doing, and what Bournemouth are doing, and what Brighton are doing. And those four teams, they're signing players from teams that we don't even hear of. Like we're seeing teams like Brighton and Brentford sign players from the French second division. We're not talking about a team low down in the top French division. We're talking about the second division, and we're talking about players bought from clubs we never even hear about. And those players go to Brighton, Bournemouth, and then they do quite well for a year. Then the price like trebles. And I think what we're seeing here is Man United, we're not even going to like the French second division. We're not going to teams at the bottom of the championship. We're going to teams that are in the Premier League already and players that are already playing in the Premier League. So I think what we're doing here is we're doing the same business model as Paris Saint-Germain have done, and the same business model that we've seen Bayern Munich do for years. Look at what Liverpool did. Liverpool bought Van Dijk from Southampton. They bought a couple of other players from teams that were mid-table or getting relegated, and those players have done well. We see that with some of the signings that you look at. Chelsea did. They bought Kante from Leicester. I mean, Leicester were on the way down a few years after that. But you look at it and think that there's a lot of good players in the Premier League already, and they're not very risky. It's not very difficult. And say, I don't know who said Bayern bought Diaz from a shit team. Yeah, true. No, just looking at this maybe I should put a poll in the chat, and if anyone's got a question as well, we'll have to see. But we think, but looking at this, we're considering that people are a bit worried about the transfer window. It seems. So we've got a championship coach at best, says Yori. Do you think that's like is that a bit harsh on Michael Carrick that we've been since he's been at Manchester United we've got more points than Arsenal, City, Liverpool. We've beaten all those teams as well. So I think with this one that I think a lot of coaching it's not going to be about one coach either. Man United are going to potentially get. I think we're going to get Bayern Munich assistant coach to help them as well. So I think the talk about Michael Carrick and saying he's not good enough, then it's difficult to say, isn't it? That time's going to tell Michael Carrick, but what can Michael Carrick do more than he's already done? He's won, I think, 65% of his games. He's beaten all the top six. People are talking about how great Emery is. Michael Carrick's Man United kicked the shit out of Aston Villa, if you remember that game. So people are talking about Emery as being like the best coach ever because they've won against Freiburg in a mediocre competition, which, to be honest, I think most Premier League teams are going to walk the Europa League for the next 3 or 4 years. But the depth of the Premier League is levels above Europe. Look at the last 2 years. If Nottingham Forest had beaten Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest would have won the Europa League. And last season, Spurs won it. Look what happened with Spurs. So the teams, in terms of that, the Europa League for me, it's not that it's lower quality. It's that the Premier League has got the budget to have much better teams in that competition. That if you finish, I know, sixth or seventh in the Premier League, you're levels above most of Europe. That's not in the Champions League. So that people are talking about Emery as being amazing. He's got a great record, but it doesn't mean he's going to have a great record at Man United. I would say we've got many unhappy fans here with zero hope. I think if you feel negative about the transfer window, that's up to you. So if people are optimistic, that's obviously their choice as well. I think at the moment, then you can look at the transfer window and be negative about it, but nothing's actually happened. That some things will be out of Manchester United's control. That if Mateus Fernandes decides to go to PSG, there's not much we can do about that. But I think we have to try and get some of these players in. I think one of the things I've seen regarding this one is that Mateus Fernandes. One of the reasons is he wants to play with Bruno Fernandes. I think Bruno Fernandes is going to stay at the club again, and I think at this point in time, I don't see the point in actually moving on Bruno Fernandes. People say that people don't like the fact that everything's going through Bruno, but I don't see the problem. Like if Man United can beat, like, it's like Bruno Fernandes playing as an attacking player since January, and Manchester United pick up more points than any other team in the league since January. They beat all of the top six again since January. Michael Carrick and Manchester United, Bruno Fernandes, they can't do any more than they've done. If Bruno Fernandes gets an assist record, um, and breaks the Henri record, and he's passing to Xerxes for a lot of matches. Like you see, Bruno Fernandes would have got an extra 5 assists if Man United had a clinical striker. The reason, the reason why Manchester United and Carrick hasn't been signed up already is that they want to get all the coaches signed as well at the same time. So there's a bit of a negotiation between, I believe, the Bayern Munich assistant manager, and they want to bring him on board. Once they've agreed all the coaches, then they're going to do it in one go. So they're not going to get their Carrick's not going to sign, and then they get an extra coach or two after. They're going to get the whole group signed at once. I think that's why Tony. So there's no drama about it. It's just about negotiations. Like I think Michael Carrick, everything's agreed in principle. It's just about getting, just about getting the other people on board. No, maybe though, maybe. No, I think it's good. I think standards should be quite high as well. I did say that the 15th was going to be um, the way that it said 15th was going to be an off, like a one-off season. I think one thing we've seen is that if you get a really poor manager, it's going to really damage your club. And sometimes I look at it this way: I think if you're looking at if you get a competent manager, like Michael Carrick is competent, he's not going to make stupid decisions like we've seen in the past. And I think that is what you need at a club. Yeah, I think this idea about having elite managers, like how many managers are going to come in and transform the team. I think, and under Michael Carrick, you could argue that Bruno Fernandes has probably played some of his best football for years. And if you build with better players around that, United can win the league in a couple of seasons if they keep building. Like Manchester City have thrown money at it, and we have no idea what's going to happen with Maresca. Are Arsenal going to be worked out a bit? That we found the second half of the season, Arsenal struggled a bit more in games. People will work out how to stop Arsenal set pieces, and if they change the rules a bit as well, with like trying to basically push the goalkeeper in the goal and crowd him, that Arsenal did get lucky this season. So I think you're going to see. I think you're going to see a good opportunity for this one as well. Yeah, so Alex was the last one as well. So no one's asking United to buy these players and resell them on. No one's asking that either, are they? Any possibility of getting information of the people around? I think people know Holland very well. I think in that they know, as far as I know, I think most of the people are going to stay. Like I think everyone knows about Evans, everyone knows about Woodgate. It might be the Bayern Munich assistant manager that might be the new guy. In which case, we could look at this. And we've been very lucky. Also, have we been lucky though? I saw a table yesterday that said how many VAR decisions have incorrectly gone against a club over the last 12 months. And Manchester United have had 9 VAR decisions go against them, which is more than any other club. And in terms of like benefiting from VAR decisions, I think Manchester United are mid-table. So I think overall VAR has kind of messed Man United a bit more than other clubs. Look at VAR decisions that have gone for clubs, and I think Arsenal are top of the league. Like they've had loads of decisions. So I don't think we've been lucky. I don't think you can like you can beat Man City and be lucky in one game, but you don't beat Man City, beat Arsenal, beat Liverpool, beat Villa, beat Chelsea. You don't win. You don't become top of the league since January and be lucky. Like some of it's fortune, but I think if you look at the game on the weekend, was it luck that we beat the Nottingham Forest? Bruno Fernandes created about 5 good chances. We should have scored like another 3 goals. We hit the post twice. I think Forest were lucky the game was that close. That if we had a clinical finisher, no, I don't think you look at that and think, um, I don't think it's lucky. Like I say, people don't understand that Brighton and Brentford model of buying players from. Yeah, this is something that isn't. It's not easy to sign. It's not easy to sign loads of players and then sell them for a profit. That's something that you know. can happen, but it's not that easy. I think United aren't looking at trying to do that either. I don't think we want to try and sell players on. The idea is to construct a good team around this one. Can someone clarify the Bayern Munich assistant manager story? Where does this report come from? You're going to share the news with your Man United WhatsApp group. You should get your Manchester United WhatsApp group to get involved, Cohen. So there was there was definitely a lot of reports about a month ago, 3 weeks ago. To it's been like kind of an ongoing story. I think around about the time that Bayern Munich got knocked out of the Champions League, Manchester United start being linked to him, and they want to get him on board. So I can't remember exactly where the report came from because it was kind of multiple sources. I think we might have covered it recently, like about 3 weeks ago, possibly. So it's something that is I think it's going to happen unless you see anything to the contrary. But that's the reason why that's the reason why we're not going to be seeing Michael Carrick announced just yet. So was it Graham Bailey? No. So it's that's why Carrick has not been announced because they're negotiating with the other members of the coaching staff. Once that happens, then we will see it announced. So there's a reason for that. So it's not that Michael Carrick's going to go nowhere, but they just want to get the other people. That's probably the key bit as well. Daz says Arsenal winning the league tells me we can. So yeah, no. Should I do a poll? Has anyone got a question they want to discuss or anything they want to put in the polls? Because normally I do like a poll, but at the moment, when I was looking at the news with Fernandez, it feels like Fernandez is not necessarily a done deal, but it feels like it's one Man United can get done if they want to, and part of it's like Bruno Fernandez as well. Do I think Carrick will make it to Christmas? I think so. I think 100%. Why would he not? I mean, Michael Carrick's going to have a more difficult job, but you'd imagine that he's going to also have slightly better coaches around him with the addition of like some coaches to the coaching setup. He's going to have some better players as well. And some of the players that did well this season will be good next season as well. They might step up as well. Aiden Heaven might be in the team a bit more. We've seen him improve loads over. And actually, some of the coaching setup, I think we've got in Woodgate, Evans, I think they've really improved people like Aiden Heaven. And if they can try and get better performances out of Yoro, and if Yoro improves as well, I think there's going to be some positives for the future. Also, I think Lamans is close to being one of the top goalkeepers in terms of how many saves Lamans has made this season. I think is right up there as well. Is Dorgu's goal against? I think um, I think this is going to be 100%, isn't it? This is going to be probably one of the best. Aaron Danks is the guy you need to search for if you're looking for Bayern Munich. And one of the things I don't know if you're in the Discord, Cohen. Let me post a link to the Discord. So I don't think I did that for this one. Um, if you're in the Discord, then we share quite a lot of information in the Discord to keep people up to date. But I'll put the Discord link in the chat for people to find. So so if you see articles, you can share them in the Discord in like a news section as well, and that'll be a way of sharing information because there's a lot of articles coming out, and a lot of people in the chat do post things and share things there as well. So Jim, Cody, there's a few other people as well do use the Discord server and just share a bit of information. If you see some stories, then please get involved. Be up to you, Cake. Enjoy the rest of your day. It's going to be a hot one today. I think it might be barbecue time this afternoon. Sesko's goal against West Ham was your best goal of the season. Yeah. Do you think regarding this one? Let me just I was going to say, should I put a poll in the chat for anybody watching that has never subscribed before? There's a new subscriber. If you are, then we're trying to push towards 1K as well. It's something which then opens up a bit more functionality on the channel and will help a lot as well. I would say I think Yora needs to run of games to get confidence. Yeah, I agree as well. I'd say luck isn't a thing when the game is won in moments. I think if Forest scored an equaliser to make it 3-3, then we go into another gear to win it with a fourth. I think there's going to be so Which decision cost us the most this season? Keeping Amarin after Europa defeat or VAR decisions? Um, that's going to be a difficult one, isn't it? Should I put like poll in like what holds? Okay, I kind of like the idea about your poll. So I'm going to put something in the chat. Have a think about it, and I'm not going to use the Glazers as a reference because they're going to be the worst one. So what's held Man United back the most? Okay, so what's held Man United back the most? Is it going to be this season? So this season, this could be an interesting one actually. I've got a few good answers. This could be a good poll. We'll run it for about 5 minutes maybe. What's held Man United back the most this season? So one is going to be VAR. Then we're going to have Amarin. Make me smart. So I try not to mention Amarin, but it does come up. So VAR, Amarin, the players has got to be a factor as well. So basically, what stopped us from winning the league? Like what stopped us? I'll just say Luther United. You don't know, so you know my feelings on Ruben Amarin. He was out of his depth for a while. So VAR, Amarin, the players. Is there anything else as well? Yeah. So lack. Say so. Yeah. Poor transfers. Maybe. Maybe lack of midfield. Yeah. So why didn't Man United win the league this season? So we've been the best team since January. So what's the reason we didn't? What's held Man United back this season? So we've got VAR, we've got Amarin, we've got the players, and we've got lack of midfield. So four good options. They've all played a part, I think, with this one. Genga said we were never winning the league. No, well, what if Michael Carrick was in charge from day one, and we got Lamon signed early? We bought a midfielder, then, and we don't have European football. If Leicester City can do it, then yeah. I would go so far to say is that VAR is definitely like the 12th man for Arsenal, isn't it, this season? So I think there's definitely a factor regarding that one. But we're going to have like a very short vote on this one, so make sure you get involved in the discussion. I thought it'd be interesting to see what people's opinions are on this one. So I want this to be like a snap vote. So please make sure you vote rapidly if you can. And yeah, I wasn't going to be saying Ruben couldn't rub two wins together. No, Afcon. Yeah, I suppose Afcon was like a bit of a factor. We didn't actually do too badly with that one, but that's probably not a bad one. Not a bad shout. I could have put that in, but I don't think Afcon affected us as much as say Ruben Amorim and having a lack of midfield for the whole season either. And Vril says the poll's not fair. All of those were the issues. So those are actually the issues, aren't they? The question actually should be though. Next season we don't have Amarin. What else don't we have? We don't have. Hopefully next season we won't have a lack of a midfield, and then hopefully next season we've got motivated players, and hopefully like VAR is out of our control. So you'd have to assume that if VAR is never going to be our friend, and maybe it's going to be a factor. But no, if we can address those 4 points and AFCON's not happening, then why can we not win the league? Like, why can we not win it? Like, we should be looking at trying to get this one. So Dice says Ruben was getting sporting firing, playing good football, and so you got to give him a proper rebuild. He would have worked. We don't have Amarin, but we don't have Casemiro. That's true. That's true. But I wanted to, so please vote and please subscribe if you haven't done so. And we're going to wrap this poll up very quickly. I want it to be like a snap poll today. So, right. So, this is the results, and the people have spoken and say what's the reason, what held Man United back the most this season. So the players 0%, Amrin 20%, VAR 20%, lack of midfield 60%. So most interestingly, most people say it's a lack of midfield, which I think it is a factor. I think weirdly though, we had this exactly the same midfield since January, and we picked up more points than any other team since then. So I think maybe next season we could look at trying to address midfield, and then maybe a title charge. Then it seems like according to fans, maybe a title charge. But guys, thanks for watching. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe as always to be kept up to date with Manchester United news. And if you got any sort of questions or things you want to share, please post them in the channel Discord, like pin that as well. And we will be live later on today for any other breaking news as well. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you guys in the next.